This week we're going to cover some of the unique aspects associated with the federal side of procurement and then the state and local side of procurement. Now, we've covered actually quite a bit of this as we've gone throughout the class, because as we've learned about procurement, we've discussed what's been unique to the federal, and then where state and local governments depart from the federal policies. But there are still a few little areas that we should go over in order to make sure that we understand some of the critical differences. Namely, in the federal side of the house, because everything is so centralized, the budget process and the very tight control that Congress keeps on the budget and appropriation process has resulted in a very large volume of appropriations law, which has a very significant impact on contracting in the federal government. You have to always be making sure that you're spending the right kind of money, and is there enough of it, and are you spending it on the right kind of thing during the right time period. And it actually gets extremely complicated. We won't go into all of that, just some of the main concepts of that. And also the existence of the Federal Acquisition Regulations, which is the FAR. It's the Bible of procurement, as people call it. At the federal government level. It's kind of a voluminous book. I think you may have seen some of my videos where I was waving it around, but it's actually a very good book in the sense that it was built over lessons learned over a long period of time. I'm always fond of telling my classes that George Washington did not pull out the FAR when he crossed the Delaware. Obviously, this procurement regulations have grown over the life of our country, and most of them came about as a result of mistakes that were made, and then somebody said, oh, well, how can we prevent this mistake from happening in the future? And they decided the appropriate way to prevent something from happening in the future was to write some kind of regulation or guidance into the FAR. And so for that reason, a lot of state and local governments will actually utilize the FAR very closely. In fact, it kind of surprises me how closely the state and federal governments will utilize it. On the state and federal or state and local government side, obviously we're not going to be able to cover all of the budget processes and all of the appropriations strings that are tied to the various states and local organizations, but nevertheless, make no doubt about it, they're absolutely critical to know. So if you were to end up as a practicing procurement professional on a state or local level, it would be critical for you to ascertain what the budget process is and what sorts of strings get attached to the money that shows up on your desk to spend, to make sure that you don't get into trouble spending money that somebody somewhere doesn't think that you should have spent on a particular item. And believe me, the technical people will certainly try and get you to do that sort of stuff, because they're the ones who want to get their mission done. But in procurement, that's one of our jobs, is to kind of make sure that the money, the guidelines associated with the money, are being followed appropriately. And also, the state and local governments have something that's out there for them as a possible resource, which is the American Bar Association has created something called the Model Procurement Code for state and local governments. And it actually is a very nice code of procurement regulations and suggested terms and conditions. So again, if you were to find yourself as a state and local government person procuring, and if there wasn't a very large volume of suggested terms and conditions or things to follow, obviously the FAR on the federal level is a resource that you could use, but this ABA Model Procurement Code is actually very nice as well. So we'll do a little snippet on that so you can look into that. So we're almost to the end. So this week it's all about some of the unique aspects of federal versus the state and local, and I hope you enjoy learning a little bit more about those things. So talk to you later.